writer and an activist.
So, sir, your most recent book has been Butterfly Effect with a Twist. And the first question to you would be, how did you begin your journey in this career? And we would like to know about your career throughout. So your mic is mute, sir.
Good evening. Thanks for inviting me to this interesting Q&A conversation at NSHM. I would like to thank Professor Sojan Nopudi and Shantanu Sengupta for arranging this, and all staff and teachers of NSHM for doing this. I'm quite surprised that you guys are sitting here on a Friday night to listen about CLIFI, because yeah, usually, it's party time, you go out and meet friends. So it's very, heartening to see that a few of you are here. And, all of you know what climate change is and how it is affecting every corner of society, everything, economics, politics, everything. And I am a CLIFI writer in the sense that my most recent novel is CLIFI, but I have written other kinds of books also. So how did I get into this kind of thing? So I had studied economics
Okay.
Yeah.
So from economics to CLIFI, so this is an amazing journey.
Actually what happens is, I have thought about this. When you are thinking about economics, growth, demand, supply, you begin to also think what is beyond this, because only growth, limitless growth has poisoned the planet. So you begin to think what's beyond this, if there is another way beyond this typical growth-oriented theories of economics, which brought me to environmental activism. And I have been an activist for a very long time, working for different national, international NGOs. We also created a small group, and I'm still involved with quite a few NGOs. So that was how the jump happened. Am I clearly audible? Or
yes, sir. You are totally audible, sir.
Yeah. So that's how the jump happened from economics. Originally I have worked a bit with, economic and political issues for the Japanese government and for a few years, but then I made the jump to environment. And as I went deeper and deeper into environment work at various levels, from villages, creating awareness in villages about, sustainable consumption, ozone depletion, to cities pushing corporates to change their ways, to bring in more green technology, to the United Nations in the US, where we were advocating with governments to put forward green environment policies, green policies, sustainable development policies. Throughout this course of work, I have met various kinds of people and have gathered a lot of experience about how the world is running and how the environment is being spoiled. And gradually, I have begun to think that activism is just one of the spokes of the wheel. You need many other things, to so-called change the world. So, and because I was always writing, I was writing for newspapers. Nowadays all newspapers have column spaces, or you can pitch your articles there. So I had been doing that for quite a long time when I was doing my post-graduation from then on. So gradually I thought how to bring these two together, my activism and my writing, and communicate the message of, climate change or environmental degradation or ozone depletion or water scarcity through a creative space, also into a creative space, because through stories rather. Because, stories are very sticky. They remain with us for a long time. I think someone's mic is, maybe you have to mute the others if possible. Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, these were two parallel lines. I was going on this activist route, and I was also doing some writing, but I thought these two should come together through stories, because stories are very sticky. Stories connect with people at a different level, which is why this whole thing about climate writing, climate fiction came into being and is becoming more and more popular. Because I will tell you an anecdote. A few years back, there was this conference on sustainable development or something, where every participant was asked to tell a story to the next person, a very short story, 4 or 5 sentences. And so each of them told a story to the next person, and then the conference was over, and 3 or 4 years later, two of them met, but they couldn't remember each other's names, not their affiliations, which university, etc. But the stories were clear in their mind. So I told you, I remembered the story that you had told me, you remember my story. So stories are like that. Stories are very sticky, and stories are very good vehicles to communicate complex messages like climate change, because as we know, climate change is a lot of science, climate science, then hard, storms and drought, and it's going on all over the world. There is very complicated science behind it, but to communicate it, stories are a very, very good vehicle, which is why I came to storytelling, story writing. But initially I was writing, literary fiction, a bit of a Gothic kind of fiction. I have a book called Hotel Calcutta, which is, ghosts and detectives and several other things. But gradually, I came to writing climate fiction. And I'm doing, my next book is also largely climate change. It's still not out, but yeah. And I'm also doing, you may have seen in that bio, I'm editing volumes on, climate fiction, or rather, let's call it solar punk, which is something I will explain later. But we can go on to the next question, and I will come back to this topic. What solar punk is, what is climate fiction?
Okay, so as you have written so many great works and you are a Cli-Fi author, so what motivated you to be a Cli-Fi author?
Yeah, actually, it's the same thing. I have worked on various issues in my environment, avatar or whatever you call it. I worked on water scarcity, GMOs, ozone depletion. We did a lot of work on ozone depletion, and that is one of the areas where humanity has been a bit successful in closing the ozone layer, the ozone hole, which was doing a lot of damage because the UV rays were coming in and stuff, and damaging our skin, and several other things were happening. That is one area where collective effort from countries and people have been very successful. But gradually I moved into climate activism because this was becoming a bigger and bigger issue. And now we see every year there are more and more cyclones. Those of you who are in Calcutta, the intensity of cyclones are increasing. There are more severe droughts, wildfires, all in the US, and no place is safe. So the impact of climate change, even it's difficult to make these connections, but we have studies now which show that dengue or malaria, these are also increasing because of climate change. In some cases, the mosquitoes are expanding their range. They are going into cooler areas which have become hotter because of climate change. They are breeding more, and several other things are happening. All are connected to climate change. And so I gradually felt that this is the issue that I should be working on. And in my activism, I have been long involved. I got involved in climate activism, climate advocacy, writing research papers on climate change. And gradually, as I said before, I kind of tried to bring these two together. My creative writing, I was already publishing books. I published on other subjects, but I thought there should be a way to bring these two together. It's difficult because, there are several reasons why it's difficult. Climate change is a global phenomenon. It's spread out all over the geographies, all over time zones. And stories usually, try to concentrate on a small place. So it's very difficult to write about climate change in that way. Then also climate change affects lots of people together. It's not only a hero's journey or something like that. So you have to try to write about collectives of people. There are problems, there are difficulties, there are professional risks also, which Amitav Ghosh has written about in his very well-known book, The Great Derangement, about climate change. Because, there is this thing, at one side there is literary fiction, and then there is science fiction. And there is a separation between the two, because when modernism came, when modernity came, there was a forced separation done between the, one side you kept science and the other side you kept human culture. And those stories which talk about both, like science fiction, it's also about humans and it's also about science. These mixed stories, they were kind of, pushed into the outhouses of literature. They were kind of looked down upon. And climate fiction is a kind of science fiction because it has a lot of science in it. So there is a professional risk of writing climate fiction. But because of my activist background, maybe because of the gravity of the situation, because it's such a huge problem, maybe the biggest existential crisis that humanity has faced till date, I thought I will go into this, whatever the risk may be. And now more and more people are writing. In fact, in advanced developed countries, there are many cli-fi writers. In India, not so many. There are reasons for that also, which we can discuss another time. But that was how I came into writing climate fiction. And there were ideas from my activist days. I was thinking about a plot. There were several experiences, and several other things came together in my writing of this novel, Butterfly Effect.
So as you said, these are all the things that motivated you for the cli-fi. So I would like to ask you, which writer influenced you? And who is your favorite writer and why?
Oh, this is a very, it's very risky to answer this question, because if I do not name a few, they will get angry, or they might mind. But if we were talking about cli-fi only, I have been very much influenced by Amitav Ghosh, especially his, all of you should read this book. It's called The Great Derangement. I just mentioned it. It's a non-fiction, by the way. I have been reading Amitav Ghosh's other novels for a long time. Many of us do, but this particular novel, where he flagged the issues about climate change and why we should be writing about climate change, why writers should get involved with it, not only activists. That was a very big influence. Though I started writing Butterfly Effect a bit before this Amitav's book was published, but that has been a big influence. And beyond that, I have several favorite writers. It's very difficult to say, from Edgar Allan Poe to Paul Auster to Amitav Ghosh, Amit Chaudhuri, and then the French writers, the great Russian writers, Tolstoy, Gorky, Dostoevsky, Bulgakov. Bulgakov is, I don't know if you have read, but he is a fantastic writer. I think he has published in 1 or 2 books. You must read him. Nothing cli-fi, he's not cli-fi, but he has this, this Gothic, this, fighting against the system. There is a character of Satan in that. So all kinds of things. Dostoevsky has been a big influence. The French have been a big influence in my writing, I think. People like Balzac, Flaubert, and those. The Americans also, Paul Auster, Cormac McCarthy. In fact, Cormac McCarthy has also written climate fiction. There is this novel called The Road, which has also been made into a movie. I think it's on Netflix or somewhere. You can watch it. It's fantastic, fantastic work. And people often say, because climate fiction has a lot of science in it, it can get boring. It's not really literary. Some people say that. But if you read Cormac McCarthy's Road, or a new writer, I think she is Finnish writer called Emi Itaranta. She has a fantastic book called The Memory of Water, about a future, say 40, 50 years from now, when there is severe water scarcity all across Northern Europe, and China has taken over a lot of Europe. China has built colonies there, and how a young girl, a teenage girl, is kind of, fighting against that with help from a friend, and what happens to her finally. Memory of Water. That's another unique climate fiction novel, because it is very literary. The language is also very good. Sometimes, there is a lot of tension between plotting and the language. If the plot is very fast, the author may not be able to concentrate on good writing or good language. But these are books like Memory of Water. Fantastic. Just read it. And Cormac McCarthy's Road, you must see the movie at least. So I forgot your question. What was the question? My influences. Those are my influences actually.
So the question was, who are the people who influenced you to write?
Around me, well, the writers I read, those were the people that influenced me. I don't think anyone beyond that. My activism, if you can personify my activism if I can think of her or him as a person, my activism has influenced me. And of course, I've got support from the people around me, my family, friends. And Calcutta is such a rich, a place for inspiration, for writing stories. Calcutta is full of stories. Every second person you meet is a character. but also Bombay, Delhi in a different way. But so that has been an inspiration. Calcutta has influenced me. Actually, I have quite a few books written about Calcutta, which are not cli-fi. There is this book called Hotel Calcutta, which I mentioned. Then there's one in Bengali, actually. I also do a bit of writing in Bengali. It's called Calculus, but it's not mathematics. It's short stories. Then there's this very interesting work called Calcutta Nights, which was a book written in the 1920s by a Bengali author called Hemendra Kumar. He used to roam about the city, all over the city alone with a stick, and go to all kinds of interesting places, from burning ghats to red light areas and everywhere. And he had this memoir, which I translated into English 2 years back. It's called Calcutta Nights. So Calcutta has been a very big influence in my writing, and also in my cli-fi. In Butterfly Effect, Calcutta is one of the settings. And as you know, Calcutta is very vulnerable to climate change. Large parts of the city are below sea level or quite close to sea level. And we can see, this year there were 60,000 dengue cases in our state. So it's all the effects of climate change. So those are my influences: writers, family, books, actually, and the city. The city has been a big influence. Yeah.
So, sir, as you have as you have learned and written so many books on climate fiction, what do you think is the importance of reading cli-fi?
Yeah, that's a very important question, actually. So what happens is, when there's a major crisis facing humanity, if artists don't engage with it, writers, painters, filmmakers, then it doesn't reach the public imagination. The people won't be thinking about it also, because how do we get information about climate change? There are 2 or 3 avenues. One is from newspaper headlines. The other is from scientific papers. But newspaper headlines are always, mostly, it's changing because climate change is so big now. Newspaper headlines are mostly sensational. You just read the headline, read a few lines, and then you forget. Then there is scientific framing of climate change. If you read a scientific paper on climate change, it's often very abstruse. You can't make much meaning out of it. Most of us cannot. Lay people, we cannot make meaning out of it. So the literary framing or writing about climate change becomes very important to reach the public imagination. I will give you one example. Have you seen this movie, The Day After Tomorrow? It's a very well-known climate movie. You must watch it. It's available everywhere. So, and you must have heard about the IPCC, Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. So that year, the year that The Day After Tomorrow was released, it got about 10 to 20 times more news coverage than the IPCC report that was released on the same year. So that gives you an idea how much more important the creative framing of this problem of climate change is, compared to the other framings or the other ways of approaching it, through news, through IPCC reports, through science. Those are important. You cannot do without those. But to connect with the public imagination, to connect emotionally with people, you need the creative framing. Stories remain with us for a long time. Stories help us visualize the possible futures of climate change, good or bad. If we work together, if governments change their policies, it might be a better future also. Stories help us imagine that. Even video games can be very interesting tool in understanding climate. In fact, I can show you something. I hope it's here. This is can you see it on the screen? Oh, actually, today I don't have my green screen behind me, so it's vanishing. But this is a book called Survive the Century. It's vanishing. Anyway, I will send you the link. This was originally a video game about climate change, which we worked upon. And there are stories that we have written. You will get it free on the internet. It's called survivethecentury.net or something. You can play it free. That will give you a very, very good immersive experience about climate change and how our choices matter, how what we do today can change the course of, the pathways of climate change, the possible futures of climate. So all this creative frame, and now we have converted the video game into a book also. This is being used actually in various universities, schools, and colleges, to play the game, and also it's written in very simple language. And there are small stories in it, like what will happen in the 2090s if we are on the wrong pathway, if we are on a very dark pathway. And so there is one story there. It's a new story that I've written. Is the Delhi metro, the Rajiv Gandhi metro station, Connaught Place. That has been metros have stopped long time back, and that has been converted into a museum. And so people can only visit it at night because the daytime temperature has increased by several degrees. So that kind of thing, it gives you a visual idea also. That's why creative framing of disaster or of an impending problem or of an existential crisis is very important. It happened in the 60s also, when this Cold War was going on among the Soviet bloc and the Western bloc, Warsaw Pact countries and these countries. There were several stories written at that time about this nuclear crisis, and movies were made. One of the very well-known ones is Stanley Kubrick's Dr. Strangelove. So always artists come forward to engage with these problems, and that is very important. Otherwise, it cannot reach out to the wider public. Someone somewhere, some book will ignite a spark in someone like Greta Thunberg, who will bring together more people around her, and push governments, push businesses to change their ways. That's what I believe, and I think that is happening also. I'm very optimistic about it.
So, as you said, the climate is deteriorating day by day. So, we are facing a climate crisis at this moment. So, there are not many who want to openly discuss about it. So, what is the reason behind that denial? Like, why aren't they just living in that denial? How can we overcome that stage?
Yeah, see, 5 years back, it was worse. It has changed a lot, no doubt. But still, human beings don't think in long term usually. They only think about short term. And the reason is the politicians also make us think in the short term. They don't want us to think what will happen after 10, 15, 20 years. Many of us won't be there, but the young generation will be most affected. And what I am seeing is it is changing. And all of you have to do that. You all have a responsibility to talk with your peers, to talk with your parents, to talk with your colleagues about climate change, and so that the discussion goes on. Unless there is a discussion, unless there is more reading of climate novels, unless more people see more climate movies, it won't happen. People are scared, but they don't want to think what will happen. And there is another human psychology. They think that it won't happen to us, it will happen to other people, which is also not correct. Initially, in the early days, we were thinking that climate change will only affect, underdeveloped areas of the world, which is true. It will affect underdeveloped areas. They will suffer more, but rich countries are also equally getting affected. Just think of the California fires. Every year they are becoming bigger and bigger, and several other things. Dead zones in the ocean, fishermen are suffering, so many other things. So it is a psychological problem of human beings not to think in the long run, to get rewards in the short term, think of what we can do in 10, 15 years, and keeping your eyes closed. But now more people are talking, and each of us has the responsibility to kind of, carry on with the discussion, open up the discussion, wherever, in whichever context, whichever platform we have to talk about climate change. Otherwise, things won't change. Things are changing, but very slowly. Even in this COP, there was very little progress in this last meeting in Egypt.
Okay. So, sir, as we know that many people don't talk about this climate change, they don't discuss among themselves about this climate change. So, sir, what are your views about the future? Are we moving towards an apocalypse?
I hope not, but see, if the temperatures really go beyond 2 degrees, it will be very, very bad for many countries. Apocalypse is it's a kind of, there are various definitions of that. Everything won't die out. There will be areas of the world more affected. Developing countries will be more affected just because they don't have enough money to, adapt and mitigate the climate crisis. If you ask my honest opinion, I still have a lot of faith in humanity, and I think we will go in some, a middle of the road kind of situation. Not too bad, not too good. It won't be like this. It will get worse, but not the scary scenarios. There are actually, if you Google after this program, There is something called shared socioeconomic pathways to the future. There are 5 different pathways that the future might take, and it is very well thought about. Sociologists, scientists all have come together to think about this. So one of the pathways is very dark, 3-degree temperature rise. So much of the world will die out. Plants extinction, species extinction, agricultural productivity will go down. And there are green, very good pathways where we have, managed to keep temperatures below 1.5. I believe it will be somewhere in the middle, between 1.5 and 3 by the end of the century. And that all depends on us, how much we can push. All of us should at least join a climate group or talk with people around us, whatever platforms we have. We should, pass on the message. Even read climate books, non-fiction, fiction. So I don't believe in the dark apocalypse where all the, if you think about The Road, Cormac McCarthy's, all of the US has been devastated. Though he doesn't, interesting thing is he doesn't mention climate change in his book once, but it's a kind of climate apocalypse scenario. There are several other books like that. I don't believe that it will be so bad, but things are getting worse. Every year, if you just follow the news, if you keep your eyes and ears open, you see how everything is changing, how the world is changing very fast, how the climate systems are changing. Cyclones are becoming more fierce, droughts very frequent. All these strange diseases are returning. Under the Siberian permafrost, there are forgotten bacteria, deadly bacteria, which can again infect us if this permafrost melts because of climate change. So those possibilities are there, and we have to stop it. But now people are fighting a war in Europe. How will we work on climate change? That is another problem. No. I think I shouldn't be discussing it, but I think democracies are better compared to autocracies. It has been shown also. If the world becomes more and more nationalist governments, more dictators, then the emissions will also go up. It has been proved scientifically. If you look at this pathways science, there are 5 different pathways where it has been shown that if we have more autocracies, then emissions will go up, climate change will get worse. So all those factors are there, but I hope, it will be something in the middle. And I am working for that. All of us have to work for that.
So as you said that you're working for that, and we all of us have to work for that. So we the millennials, so how can we take action to save our planet? What can we do?
Several things actually. The easiest would be to, work with climate groups. There are climate NGOs everywhere now. All environmental NGOs have a climate component. So that's the easiest thing you can do. Join them in your free time. Give them even 1 hour a week. That's one thing. Change in your lifestyles. Use less cars. One problematic area is food. The food that we consume, meat. Too much meat eating. In India, we don't have, Westerners eat much more meat compared to us, even in areas where a large part of India is vegetarian. But if you leave that out too, the meat consuming part of India, they also don't consume a lot of meat like the West. But meat is a very serious problem for climate change because, all this grazing ground it requires. It has been shown that if meat eating can be brought down, not stopped. I am not for stopping, meat eating completely. Then emissions will come down by a significant degree. So what we eat, how we travel, if there is a train option, you don't take a flight. Trains are slightly better because lesser emissions are involved. What kind of general power you use at home? Try to go solar if possible. Try to convert a part of your home to solar. There are several options now available. Work with NGOs which are doing climate work. Pass on the message to the people near you. Entrepreneurs, businessmen, politicians, they are all around us. They are part of our families. In our homes, they didn't come from space. They are around us. And we are connected to them. We can talk with them. And some of them will listen. Of course, they will listen. And slowly it will change. Even through our vote, we can do that. If there is a Green Party, or if a party has green agenda, we support them so that the climate agenda can be pushed forward. So there are several ways. Changing in lifestyles is very important, but here there is one thing we have to remember. There is a tendency to put all the blame on the consumers only. And businesses get away. It's not like that. We have to also push the producers. They are the major polluters. We consume, we can change our lifestyles, but unless the businesses change their ways, unless they move towards green technologies, sustainable technologies, it won't happen. So we have to maintain momentum both over consumers in our own lifestyles, and also we have to push businesses, producers, multinationals to change their ways. I'm just remembering we were working on a project called Eco Refrigerators quite some time back. And it was an India-wide project. I was doing awareness things and stuff all over India. And so here in Calcutta, one major multinational company which manufactures refrigerators, we went to their office with a refrigerator on a funeral pyre, because and we were carrying that to pass on the message that the technology they were using was damaging the planet and it was obsolete, it was dead. They should be shifting to climate-friendly refrigerators. There are climate-friendly refrigerators now. So that kind of visual activism. Think about Greta Thunberg crossing the Atlantic on a sail ship. That creates a lot of that touches people at the core of their hearts and can easily change viewpoints, change world views too. So that kind of thing we also have to do. We have to push corporates to change their ways. Write letters in newspapers, write letters to CEOs. There are several different ways to do, and join the movement. There are so many NGOs working on climate change now. If you just do a Google, there are several. Just pick one that you like. Even devote 1 hour of your day. You don't have to go out on the streets if you don't have time. Just help them with their website. Help them with their campaigns. There are several different kinds of strategies that you can take to change the world. That's a big thing, but yeah.
So, sir, as you expressed your views about the millennials just now, sir, do you think that we have enough knowledge about the climate change? And how do you think we can spread awareness about it?
See, yeah, that's a problem. But I don't know, in your curricula you have climate change, no? Are you taught environment also in your classes? Do you have a subject called environment?
Yes, sir, we had a subject called environment, but not at the moment.
Not at the moment, yeah. So the easiest thing is to Google and look at the United Nations websites. They have balanced information. Also, you can look up NGO websites like WWF, Climate Action Network, to get some basic ideas about what is happening. The basic science. You don't have to go into detail, because after a while it's very complex. We don't have to go to all that detail, but the basic thing, what is happening, how emissions is heating up the earth, and it is creating a lot of disasters all around us. Mostly, it's very simple actually. It's storms, droughts, wildfires, and then decreasing agricultural productivity. If the temperatures increase, crop productivity falls. So we will have, serious problems, famines and stuff like that. And then people will have to migrate, and migration triggers wars. Migration can trigger war. It has happened. A very interesting study has come out 1 or 2 years back, the Syrian war, that terrible thing that happened in Syria. One of the reasons triggering that war was climate change, because there was water scarcity at the beginning, and there's a migration. There are several other factors, but climate change has also been implicated in the Syrian war. So these kinds of connections are there. Species dying out, storms. We know what storms do. We know what a drought how drought can impact the country. We know what migration causes. Like in a place like Calcutta, we very well know, because of the partition of India, the suffering that we have seen in 1947-50, that period. So climate migration will become a bigger problem. So these simple things you have to kind of, just Google and look up what are the major impacts of climate change. What are the basic data that we need to know when we speak with people? What is 1.5 degree? What is 2 degree? It's not very difficult. And then if you are more interested, you read books, you read climate novels, because that will give you a different kind of perspective, a different kind of, it will give you different strategies to connect with people regarding this, existential crisis that we are facing. Because it brings it down to the human level. Stories bring it down to the human level. So you can talk in a different way when you are talking. You are not only giving data, you are also talking about people, real people, what is happening to them. Now there are very good podcasts also on climate change. So if you kind of Google them, you will find very interesting podcasts, even BBC. So there is this, there is this alternative. Maybe I should tell you, talk about this now. There is this parallel to the climate movement. There is this movement called solar punk or hope punk, which is about, which tries to tell positive stories only, not the apocalypse, not dystopia. Because many studies have shown that hopeful stories influence more people to work for change. So there is this whole movement called solar punk, hope punk. Punk, what is punk? Punk is, kind of activist, kind of anti-establishment kind of way of looking at the world. But with solar punk, we are talking about the same thing, changing the world, but with help of sun's energy, with help of renewable energy, with community, by bringing people together. I don't know whether Shantanu is online now. So there's this thing called seed bombs we can make. You know what is a seed bomb? You just kind of put some, say, cucumber seeds or maybe flowers, and put some manure in that and create small, globules, and just throw it in abundant places, maybe under a flyover. So some fruits will grow there, some vegetables will grow there, and the poor people living in that area can use those. So that kind of thing is solar punk. That kind of thing is solar punk. Solar punk is talking about, the climate crisis is there, but let's start in our own small ways to deal with it, to talk about it, to write about it. Solar punk is also, a very flourishing literature. I have edited this. See, everything is vanishing today because I don't have the green screen. It's called Multi-Species Cities, Solar Punk Urban Futures. So this is a book of all solar punk stories, all positive stories, hopeful stories. That is also don't only read apocalypse, dystopia, and all those. You have to also read and talk about hope. What we can do to change the world. What are the stories that instill hope in people? That I think is very important. This whole movement of solar punk. If you read the newspaper, I have just written something about solar punk. It will come out maybe next week in the Telegraph. If you get the Telegraph, or you can access it online also, which gives a very simple breakdown about the solar punk movement and what we can do. And it's closely connected to climate change.
So, sir, the next question would be, what are you currently working on, and what is your future goals?
So we always have so many goals, but yeah. So right now, I just finished writing a book. It will come out next year, maybe March, April. Another novel, which has a climate change backdrop. This interesting thing, I'm coming back to climate change again and again. What is climate fiction? Climate fiction is not only a story where climate change is happening in the background and then people are doing their own thing. Climate fiction is a kind of writing where climate change almost becomes a character, where it influences the storyline. It can happen in several ways. It can be a storm, it can be a smog in Delhi, anything. So that is a real climate story. So this book that is coming out is that kind of a story. It's called Spellcasters. There is a psychological narrative also about a diseased, about an affected individual suffering from something called dissociative identity disorder. It's like schizophrenia, but slightly different. So that is over. That will come out. I've finished writing it, and I am also working on two nonfiction works. One is I'm kind of collecting all the lectures on climate fiction that I have given till now, and kind of arranging that into a book, which will be, an easy reader for climate fiction, something like that. If someone has read one or two climate novels and want to read more, where to go for it? how climate fiction can be analyzed. It will be something both for academics and interested lay readers. So that is one thing I'm working on, and I have just kind of putting together all my. I used to write a column for New Indian Express on environmental issues, everything from methane to not only environment, all the major issues of our times, post-truth, algorithms, Facebook, from both from a positive and negative angle. So I'm putting all those cases together in a book, which I hope will be over by June. You know, we never can keep deadlines. I impose deadlines on myself, but I don't know whether I'll be able to finish it by June. But I'm trying to finish that book also, after which I will be writing another novel, which might be a sequel to Butterfly Effect, because the Butterfly Effect ends with, you know, some unresolved questions. So, and people have been telling me to write a sequel. So I might do that or write some other novel, which will be about climate change, I believe, because, you know, for me, it's very difficult to ignore climate change at this point of time, unless things change drastically.
Now, sir, that we got to know so many things about climate change, cli-fi, and apocalypse, then global warming from you. Can you suggest us some eco-critical books or movies so that we can watch them?
Yeah, eco-critical. See, eco-criticism is a very huge topic. All like from Wordsworth to Cormac McCarthy, everything can be called eco-criticism. But we have to make a difference. Let us focus on climate change, because eco-criticism is also, you know, it valorizes nature in a certain way. It puts nature in a sacred place, treating nature as sacred. But only that outlook won't do in our times, because the problem is all around us. You are not only going to save a small village in the Himalayas. That won't do. You have to talk about everything that is happening. So that you will find in Wordsworth and Shelley and all those people. That is eco-criticism. Then there have been several, you know, transformations of eco-critical writing. The most recent one is climate writing, where the problem is all around. Where if you read Amitav Ghosh's Gun Island, it connects Sundarban with Venice, you know, because it's a global problem. Even in my novel Butterfly Effect, it connects Korea, South and North Korea with our country, and then England. So what to read? You read Cormac McCarthy's The Road. That's a very good starting point. Another very important book is Barbara Kingsolver's Flight Behavior. Very important novel. Then Liz Jensen. She more of an adventure kind of writing, but very good climate writing. The Rupture. That's a very good book. So in India, other than my book, I mean, you may have read, what is it called? Laila, Prayag Akbar's Laila. It's also a Netflix series. That is kind of climate writing, more eco-critical. You know, many developing country authors do not always make the connection between emissions, global warming, and climate change. They often focus on what is happening on the ground, or focus on the water crisis, things like that. There are reasons for that, which we can discuss another day. But yeah, Laila is a good book. Then there is one by Sarnath Banerjee called All Quiet in Vikaspuri, if I remember correctly, about Delhi. That is an interesting book. Amitav Ghosh, of course, Gun Island, and non-fiction, The Great Derangement. That is a very important work. Who else? There are several. Ice Love movies. Day After Tomorrow, to begin with. And there is this Snowpiercer. Have you seen that movie? Yeah, that won several awards. It's by a Korean director. That's fantastic. You should watch that. And it's a very it begins with a kind of, you know, mitigative narrative where the world gets together to, you know, fight climate change by pumping sulfur dioxide or something into the heavens, but things fall apart after that. It's a very, very good movie. It's a kind of, you know, entertaining. It's not serious that way, but the message is serious. Then Into the Storm, about storm chasers. That is a very interesting climate movie. In Hindi, there's a movie called Kadvi Hawa, which is very much a climate movie, which gives the right messages. Slightly fiction kind of movie, but it's very interesting. and several others. Just let me look. I think I have a list somewhere here. Just give me a moment. Flight behavior, I already mentioned. Then, yeah. So Gun Island, I mentioned. Rapture, I mentioned. Kim Stanley Robinson's books, 40 Signs of Rain, then Pacific Edge. You can read all of Kim Stanley Robinson. He has this trilogy, 40 Signs of Rain, 50 Degrees Below, and 60 something and counting. So these three books, and then New York 2040, that is a very important climate book. And there is a very satirical climate novel, which you should also, there are several kinds of strands in climate writing, from fantasy to realism to gothic, satire. Ian McEwan's Solar, that is very interesting, that you will enjoy. So there are several others. I can send you a list if you kind of, see, I am on Twitter, it's my, here is Rajat Chaudhary, just the full name. Also Instagram, it's Rajat Chaudhary. So I keep posting there. If you follow me, I can share. And my email is also very easy, rajat@rajatchaudhary.net. I can share lists. I have lists somewhere. Even in our vernacular writing in Bengali, Urdu, I don't know, Urdu, Marathi, there are not climate novels, but good eco-critical, what you are talking about, eco-critical writing, which you can try if you read those languages, whichever language. You will always, if you dig into your vernacular, in your mother tongues, you will find there are very good, there is very good eco-fiction, what we call it, but not necessarily climate change. It could be about saving elephants, it could be about floods, but they are also very important books, which gives us a grounding to understand the wider existential crisis of climate change and how it came about, how colonialism can be implicated in climate change, and several other things. So yeah, try those and do write back to me whether you enjoy those books or not. I will suggest other names. There are several, many people are writing about climate change now.
So, sir,
Thank you so
among
much.
these movies,
Thank you so
these,
Yeah, please.
Over to you, Manmeet.
okay, so sir, among these movies, which one is closer to your heart?
See, what I can tell you is, if you read a novel, I am kind of partial to books. So I will say that the movie made from the Cormac McCarthy's novel, The Road, is very good. But for beginners, I think you should start with Day After Tomorrow. It gives a very clear picture of what can happen. Also touches on the science without making it very difficult for us, for people like us, lay audience. So that is one of my favorites. Day After Tomorrow. It's very good. And The Road also. And there are now several others. If you even, I think Netflix, if you search, you will get some climate, a list of climate movies. Google, of course, you will get. Day After Tomorrow is a very good place to start with climate change cinema.
Thank you so much, Rajat Chaudhary, sir, for sparing out your time from a busy schedule and spreading so much knowledgeable words with our viewers and us. And we are eagerly waiting for the workshop, which is going to happen on 1st December. And we hope to get enlightened and learn something new from you.
Thank you. Thank you. I enjoyed it thoroughly and look forward to meeting all of you on Thursday. That's on Thursday, no? Yeah. Okay.
For the list, but I also have a question. So there is a question from the audience. So what we can do daily for impacting climate change? That's a question by the audience.
Yeah.
So, sir, if you could share your views on that.
Use less cars. If you are using cars, try to walk. Don't do short trips on cars. Use public transport. That saves a lot of emissions. Don't overconsume. We buy a lot of stuff which you don't use because we are kind of emulating lifestyles of the rich or advanced countries. The advanced developed countries have brought us to this situation, but now India and China are also emitting a lot of greenhouse gases. So don't emulate the rich. Buy what you need. Consumerism is a major problem. Consumerism is a major driver of climate change. And don't follow lifestyles. It doesn't matter whether you own an iPhone or a simple smartphone. That kind of thing we have to do in our day-to-day life to impact climate change. Living modestly, living a simple life, using more public transport if possible. It's not always possible. And spreading the word about climate change to anyone and everyone who you can connect with. I think that's a lot. Yeah, that's a huge menu to kind of, yeah.
Thank you so much, sir. And we are looking forward for the 1st of December for the creative writing. And we would like welcome you in our campus and we would have a great time with you.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, sir, with us.
Thank you.